Hello everybody and welcome to Tiger Tales The Lost Stories, a place you'll find stories and fanfictions written and read to you by your host, me, Tiger. Today we're diving back in to the Colour Matrix. The Colour Matrix is a storyline where Ace uses the Colour Matrix to enter and explore multiple versions of himself across the multiverse. Think of James Cameron's Avatar, or Sword Art Online, the anime. It's very similar concept to that. A person using a machine to hijack another person's body, or another being's body, but this time around is a multiversal scale. Today, we're diving into the world of Jackie Chan Adventures. Anyone remember that cartoon? It was a good cartoon. In this chapter, Ace finds himself protecting one of the talismans. So, let's dive in. The Colour Matrix. World 14, Protector of the Rooster Talisman. I scrolled through the multiverses, till I found something rather odd. A universe where the primal point was a man called Jackie Chan. I love Jackie Chan. In my universe, he was a very well-known and popular actor and martial artist. I scanned the universes and in this cluster multiverses, Jackie was a hero and a defender and a protector. He protected talismans and artifacts against evil forces. Yo, D, I want to check out one of these. Oh my god, what? I gotta pick that one, I yelled out, selecting my universe. I felt a sudden surge of enthusiasm.
So, in this universe, you are a guardian of the Rooster Talisman and an apprentice of Jackie Chan.
Daisy told me. Oh yeah, we've so got to do this. Come on. I cheered. My shirt was pulled off in my haste and I laid on the bed and the needles entered the back of my neck and fingertips, and then I entered into my deep sleep. I woke up to the sound of something clacking and clanking in the other room. My eyes snapped open and I jumped out of bed. I gently stood, making sure I made no noise. I left my shirt off, and I just started advancing in my pajama bottoms. I tiptoed out of the room, walked down the corridor. I leaned around the corner. I could have sworn I felt someone's presence. I walked up to the vault and opened it, and there, in the empty vault, was the Rooster Talisman, all alone. I grabbed it, and I closed the vault, and I sensed a person stood behind me. You know, I don't take well at being jumped on, or being robbed, I sneered. I will take that talisman. I'll leave peacefully, my intruder snapped. I turned around on my heel and faced my intruder. He already had 2 talismans hanging off his belt. He was clearly a collector. I placed the talisman in my pocket, and I dropped into my fighting stance. You are making a mistake, my intruder grunted. He stood there in a pair of jeans, a black top, and he had a white mask over his face. A hood that clung onto his shoulders. He dropped into his fighting stance. Based off his stance, he knew what he was doing. He threw the first punch, which I managed to block with my forearm. He then threw another, which I again blocked. He then tried to kick me, but I raised my knee and caught his kick. Then he threw another one, but I managed to throw my own kick, which he blocked. We ended up in a dance of strikes and defensive maneuvers. I blocked one of the strikes, and then I would strike myself. Then I blocked again, and I striked again, till we ended up in a grip. My intruder grabbed me by the neck, pulled me forward. He fell to the ground and used his legs to flip me over him. I was thrown through a 7-foot window and smashed through it. I landed on the soft grass on the opposite side. I jumped up to my feet, and my foe jumped through the smashed window and threw a spinning kick at me. I rolled to one side, dodging the attack. I jumped up and slammed my palm into his shoulder, knocking him back. He staggered, but then I struck him again, in the chest this time, and again in the head. He staggered backwards. Then he pulled out 2 small blades. He swung them at me. I took several steps back, leaning each way from the strike, then again and again, until I flung my foot forward and kicked one of the knives out of his hand. He spun around and threw the second blade at me. I grabbed the talisman in my pocket and pulled it out, and then held up my other hand, and the blade stopped in midair, and floated there until it dropped to the floor. So, you possess the Rooster Talisman, with the power of a levitation, the intruder stated. I was confused. He was unaware of the actual talisman I had. He was stealing them, which made me question Was he hired by someone? Or was this personal gain? The intruder then ran at me. I threw out my palm, and with the power of the Rooster Talisman, the guy was sent flying back. He crashed into the floor. He stood up slowly and grunted in pain. "You don't use your own talismans?" I questioned. "They are not mine to use," my intruder barked. That statement had confirmed that he was hired to steal, which meant I was known. Or at least my location was known to someone. I knew I had to take this man down and do it quickly, and then take him to Jackie Chan. I ran at him, jumped up and floated in the air, and I threw my legs out several times, kicking the guy in the face and neck. As I landed on the ground, I rolled forward and punched him in the stomach. I stood up and spun around and swung my fist into his head. The guy was thrown off his feet and landed on the ground. "Stand down," I barked. "That I must not do, as my task must be completed," the intruder barked back. He jumped back up to his feet and took a stance. I once again dropped into my own. He threw his first punch. I caught his fist, then threw my own fist out, but he leaned to one side, making my strike null and void. I still had the talisman in my grip, so I was able to jump higher into the air than normal, and I pulled the guy up with me. We flew up into the air ever so slightly until I swung my foot around and kicked him in the head. He flew across and smashed into the higher windows, and he crashed into the attic. I flew into the attic and landed next to him. He stood up and grabbed a rather dusty old globe and threw it at me. I held my hand out and the globe stopped in midair, and with a flick of the wrist, the globe flew across the room and smashed into more dusty old furniture. I then ran at him. He pulled out something from his belt and pressed a button and threw it down on the floor, and there was a massive flashbang. The white flash blinded me. I staggered backwards. I lost my footing. I tried to focus, but I couldn't see. Then the guy tackled me and ran me out of the broken window. We both fell 2 stories and crashed on the grass. I dropped the talisman. He climbed on top of me. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't see. He started to slam his fists into my ribcage. I started coughing due to the instant pain. He raised his fists up again and swung them down. I tried to fight him off. I tried to grab for the talisman, but my vision was still blurry. When suddenly, someone dived in and slammed their foot into my intruder, who was forced off of me. I stood up and rubbed my eyes, allowing them to clear. I looked over and saw Jackie Chan stood before me. "Hello there, Ace," Jackie Chan said with a slight bow. "Sensei," I replied with a responding bow. "I am glad you're okay, Ace. I was worried. I was not going to be able to get here in time," Jackie Chan told me. "How did you know?" I asked him. "Each talisman protector is exactly 65 miles apart. When the first 2 got hit, Uncle managed to figure out which one was next," Jackie Chan explained, gesturing at me. Then he bent down and picked up the talisman and handed it to me. I looked at it in my hand and ran my thumb over the rooster insignia. Then Jackie placed his hands on my shoulders and smiled at me. "Throw a jab," Jackie told me. I looked at him with rather confused. Then he spun me around and I saw the intruder charging at me at full speed. I gripped the Rooster Talisman and I threw out my fist, jabbing the air in front of me, and then the intruder was thrown backwards and slid across the grass and crashed into the tree that stood in the centre of the grounds, rendering him unconscious. I turned to Jackie Chan and smiled with relief. "Thank you, Sensei," I muttered. "Thank you for defending the talisman. Let me take those 2 back to their protectors." "Come with me," Jackie Chan suggested. "Yeah, good idea," I sighed. I placed the Rooster Talisman in my pocket and walked over to my intruder, Jackie Chan following me. Then I knelt down and claimed the other 2 talismans he had stolen. Then everything went dark. I woke up and jumped off my bed with a big grin on my face.
"Sir, you seem rather cheery,"
Daisy stated. "Well, yeah, of course. I met the legendary Jackie Chan. I mean, it's not my version of him, but it still counts. I'm counting it," I told Daisy. Then I sat down and entered my daily log for Sparks' files. Then I checked the notes and saw that the 12 talismans that Jackie Chan defended were actually a list of weapons, artifacts, and people to keep an eye on and to collect information on. I returned to the console and searched for more universes related to the type of Jackie Chan that I had met in that universe. I did this with a huge grin on my face.
This podcast is a production of the 3 Ranger Bros Studios, in association with Zio to Hero, the podcast.
And there we have it, guys. Thank you very much for listening to this story. If you've enjoyed this story, then you might want to check out all of my Tiger Tales channels. I'm going to give you a quick rundown. There's Tiger Tales, the first and the original. This is a place where you'll find stories and fanfictions diving into all sorts of fandoms, including Power Rangers, Pokemon, The Walking Dead, Marvel, DC, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and so much more. Tiger Tales The Lost Stories follows the same suit, but all the stories on that channel are in the first person perspective. Then there's Tiger Tales Game Over, a channel where all of the storylines are related to video games in some way or another. Then we have Tiger Tales X, where I write official crossovers that aren't needed but are very wanted, and crossovers I thought might work. Then, of course, we have Tiger Tales Mysterious Origins. This is the YouTube channel dedicated to my own original stories. All the stories on this channel are original and my own, and it also answers questions on certain characters throughout my stories, like William Cranston, Mr. Pocket, and Ace from the Color Matrix. If you've enjoyed these storylines, then please make sure you check out the following podcasts. Storytime with Cosplay Dude 637, Power Rangers Universe 19, Sailor Moon E, and The Order. And make sure you check out 2 YouTube channels, Nostalgia Time and the One Piece audio drama. They are all written and read to you and edited by Cosplay Dude 637, my Parabatai and best friend. Then make sure you check out the podcast Nerds Through Comics, which is directed by Mark, the Red Corner Ranger. This is where he adapts comic books into audio dramas and also uploads his own original Power Ranger storylines. We are the 3 Ranger Bros Studios, a collaborative project, and we are all voice actors and helpers of each other's stuff, so make sure you go check us out. We're in association with the Zero to Hero podcast, so a huge shout out to Billy and Jim, the co-hosts, and of course the podcast and the community that they lead. If we're shouting out podcasts, I have to shout out Jared, the host of If You Give a Dad a Podcast. Make sure you check it out because he interviews some fantastic guests, from wrestlers to voice actors and the such. And of course, if we're talking podcasts, I have to mention my own, the Tiger Nexus podcast, where I interview content creators and geeks alike. A huge shout out to all my supporters and followers, my voice actors, the people who co-write my chapters, and the sorts. So huge thank you, and of course, a big shout out to A-Crown. Specifically him, because he helps me a lot with some of my stories, specifically the Color Matrix and the chapters that go on Tiger Tales Game Over. Thank you very much guys for listening. Now don't forget to subscribe to the channels, like the videos, and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. With that being said, I shall see you guys in the next one.
That before we can...
Don't touch my Pringles.